All right, Jerry, thank you so much for joining me on the Top Agent podcast. Very excited to be speaking with you.
Good to be here, Costa. Costa.
You got it.
All right. See, we already
It's
have to edit.
and it's
No, Costa,
Jerry, right?
great. Yes, not Coast with Jerry, not Coast with Costa. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and good to be here.
Yeah, pleasure's all mine. So there's a lot I want to get into with you, but let's break the ice very simply. Just tell us a bit about yourself and how you actually got into real estate.
That is like such a loaded question. I'm still working on how to shorten that up. I should actually pull out the bio. I was limited on 200 words for a. I was just voted in Atlanta Woman of Power and Influence.
Oh,
And
wow.
they wanted a 200-word description for that. So
That's
I
tough.
should even like pull it out and read it because that sums it up pretty quickly. But I got into real estate when I was 17 years ago. So now I don't want to tell you how old I was, but I was in my 20s. And I got into it because I went to college, had a real job, and I just kind of knew as a kid. When I was a kid, my parents were very conservative and said, "This is how it's going to be. This is your budget. This is what you can have." And I always had this idea of like, "What do you mean this is all I can have?" Like, people can do things, people can make money. So how about I just like, so when they would tell me no, I would always go figure out how I could get what I wanted, which
Yeah.
was great. They were bothered by it, but they might say differently if they listen to this. But my memory of it was that. So when I grew up, I kind of had in my head, okay, I'm going to go to college, get a degree, get a real job. I did that. I was miserable. And one day I just was like, the short PG version of it is that it was like, okay, so I am not doing well with this 9 to 5 thing, not doing well with this commuting thing. I made more money as a kid trying to find my way, being a little entrepreneur, than I did having a real job. And I was a kid without a college degree. So one thing led to another. And I kind of like made a lot of money riding horses. And then I made a lot of bad decisions and ended up having nothing at about 26 years old, 25, 26. And I thought, okay, I've got to make money. And at this point, jobs, I just got to like, I've got to find my way. And that kind of laid real estate out for me. Real estate was the least expensive, fastest way to get into an industry where you could make money. So that's what I did. Proved to be a lot harder than I thought, but it did give me the opportunity where once I figured it out, which was not by cold calling, it was not by connections, it was a very unique version of those things. I found my way and my unique kind of talent and passion in real estate. And that launched me from literally no car, broke, no clothes. And 2 years later, I say no clothes, like seriously, like a pair of jeans and a t shirt and some flip flops. And
Wow.
2 years later, I was a top agent at a top company in Atlanta. And the story goes from there. And that was back in before the recession. So I kind of almost have like, two stories because then we hit the recession and then I had to kind of reinvent myself through that.
Okay. So, okay, that's amazing. There's so much I want to unpack there. So first of all, you said you just got, or was it nominated or announced like most influential
Most
person?
Atlanta, I was Atlanta woman. I don't know how many there are, but there are a few. I don't. They just announced it and put me in a magazine, so it'll come out in Atlanta magazine.
Wow.
But it
Okay.
was Atlanta Women of Power and Influence, and I think there's like 5 or 6 of us.
Congratulations. That is incredible. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
thank you.
Perfect. So you got into real estate. I get did you have a love for real estate or was it the drive to make money by the sounds of it?
It was the drive to make money.
All about,
Um,
yeah.
but I've always been a really passionate person about living life to the fullest. So it was about making money, which gave me the drive to do whatever I had to do to get where I needed to be. And then I got to a point where I was like, this isn't fun. Everybody just wants to be number one, and everybody's all about did they get the listing, and this is miserable. And then the recession hit, so I had to kind of reinvent myself. But I also discovered in that the value that we really have because you're going through the recession where people really needed us and really needed somebody who understood how to handle distressed situations or understand how to market properties, understand how to think outside the box and get you, out of one situation into another. I had a client who called me and said, I've got a lot that I need to get rid of so I started the business selling a lot of land more
Mhm.
than homes. It's like, we just need to write, like, get the author out. Let's write a book. because I'm all over the place. But in the recession, to give you an example of kind of where I found my strengths, I'd already built up my business. In the recession, like it was, I don't know if you were in business at that time, but it was like, I was like, are we sure this isn't a depression? Because there's no money to be made. It was tough.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Um, but I had a client who had a piece of land, and everybody said, you can't sell this. And he's like, I've got to sell it. I've got to get out from under it. And I've got to buy a house for my new wife and my family that we can live in. And oh, by the way, we have to be able to walk to school.
Hmm.
So most agents were like, that's just not possible. So I came in, I figured out how to work out a trade with a builder that had a house walking distance to the school that they needed to be in. And everybody kind of got saved by that deal coming together because we made multiple transactions that kind of built up momentum for things to get done. And it was a lot sale, a home sale, and then the other lot sale turned into another home sale.
I love it. Just an executor, getting things done. I sort of have a similar motto, which is ready, fire, and then aim. So most people like to get ready, aim, and fire. I just like to do it and sort of like figure it out on the way, right? And just execute.
Exactly.
Love it. So couple things there. When you started out in your 20s, as you mentioned, you grew your business not through cold calling, not through connections. I want to ask you, like, so how did you sort of
Well, when
generate
I
those
say,
leads? And
yeah, when I say not through cold calling, not through connections, I didn't get into the business just cold calling people. And I didn't get into the business with connections, and just my business went from there. Because I was in my mid 20s. I wasn't from Atlanta. I was from South Georgia. Um, and when I came in, I had been married already and already divorced. I mean, I'd gotten a lot done before I turned 25. So, and I had managed to, I'd managed to start a business, training horses, own a house, I built up pretty quickly in my early 20s, believe it or not. But I'd also managed to marry the wrong person and get divorced and get involved with another not so great person for my well-being, and made some bad decisions, and ended up in England, ended up making my way back to the United States. But by the time I got back, I literally had a maxed out credit card. I had like 40 pounds, because that was pounds from England, that
yeah,
converted to about $60, and moved in with thank goodness I had a grandmother to live with, and figured out how to wait tables, make money. So just so it makes sense, like how this all
right,
unfolded.
yeah,
And then I thought, okay, I could ride horses. Like I rode at a barn and had a job. And then I got enough money to rent a car and get my life. And this is at 26. And I'm a lot older than that now, but at 26 and 27, you're like, oh my God, like, how did I get here? But I was in a hurry to make it all better. But now I'm not answering your question. I wanted to give that background and make the answer to the question make
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
So remind me the question.
So so when you got into real estate, first step that people learn is how to grow
Cold
your
call.
network. And
Yeah.
yeah,
So the first thing I did was I remember I would call on, I did call on for sell by owners. I did do some, I did do some calling, but it didn't work for me. But what did work for me, I remember I was a Keller Williams agent at the time. I was a Keller Williams agent for my first 7 years. And Gary Keller said, when you do business, when you're a new agent, the best thing that you could do, and some of the best advice I ever got, was you do deals to learn. And I really took that to heart because I've always been someone who loves to learn. So I remember I would just call, and one of my big breaks was I would call, and I called on a for sale by owner, and it was owned by this woman who was actually the investor. And I just started asking her about the property and asking her about the price and asking her, I don't even remember, but I was very curious about the property and their plans with it and what they were doing with it. And she said, I think you need to talk to Butch. He's actually the builder. I'm just the investor. So she puts me on the phone with Butch. Butch hears me ask questions, hears that I want to work. He ends up talking about all these properties he wants to put together. So I start he was in that time, we would flip land. We would go find land deals, find the right zoning, map it out. It was before you could pull things out on the computers. This is 17 years ago. So we had the internet to look up tax records, but I'd have to print and find information. And I would make put all these pieces together and tape them together and bring them to Butch, and we'd lay them down and we'd look at, and I'd identify what was zoned what. And then he would go, okay, we need to go and pursue these properties. And then we would get them under contract and sell them to builders. And that was really where it took off in the
Wow.
beginning. And having that taught me things that I could then meet other people selling property, and I could speak a language that other realtors couldn't speak. And it made me a very compelling agent to hire because I had such a level of education on real estate that they didn't find the other agents had.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So you started off sort of selling land and flipping land. How did I'd imagine the demographic and the type of people you work with is very different in comparison to like the residential side. So like how did you sort of make that transition?
Well, a few ways. So I rode horses. So riding horses, I knew landowners. And knowing
Hmm.
landowners, they knew I had a license. They didn't really take me really seriously, but I always say you never forget your weakness is your strength. Your problems are your gifts. So for me, it was I was young, and any connections I did have weren't very interested because they knew. I mean, I'm like, don't, I've been married and divorced and in my 20s and not experienced. Who's going to hire me, right? But on the flip side of that, there were landowners and developers that recognized I was licensed and I had insight and knowledge into land that other realtors didn't, and I had time. I was young. So that was what opened the door, and being receptive. We say the world has gifts to offer you if you're willing to receive them. Well, I was receptive to the opportunity, and that was what led me down the path of land deals. It's like whatever you think your weakness is your strength. I had friends who had condos. They wouldn't list with me because they knew I wasn't experienced. So
Right.
rather than getting
Okay.
upset and focusing on how can I make my friends hire me, like that's like the worst thing a realtor can do. It was okay, where do I have value? And being open and listening to that. So that opened me up to land deals. And then that conversations with landowners taught me it was just kind of one thing led to another where I would meet another developer, another builder, and every builder I would meet, I would ask them, how do you build? How do you make money? What's important to you? What kind of properties do you like? A lot of it was, so much of it was to learn. I think that was very compelling to them to see me learning and wanting to learn, that they wanted to work with me because they also knew I was hungry. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people say fake it till you make it, but have you ever read the book Relentless?
No.
So Relentless is a book by Tim Grover, and um, he trained, one of his first clients was Michael Jordan,
Okay.
and Michael Jordan was it was Michael Jordan and several other big athletes, but the book is all about how he was relentless. Like, don't underestimate yourself, don't aim low. So he aimed for Michael Jordan and he got him. But my favorite quote in that entire book is, it wasn't Michael Jordan, it was another basketball player. And I'm actually not a big athlete follower, sports fan or
Yeah.
whatever, so I don't remember the names. But who everybody knows Michael Jordan though. But one of the athletes was having a hard time, and he had this quote he would always pull out and show him, and it was, if he would lose his, he would just not be centered or not together, and he would pull out this quote, and it said, and he would just kind of show it to him or remind him, in order to have what you really want, you must first be who you really are. And
Mhm.
there are a lot of agents out there who want high net worth clients, who want to do land deals, who want to do creative deals, and they do it by just like calling people until somebody hires them. When you do that, you're going to call people until somebody desperate or not great takes you, because the good agents don't take the bad clients. And the bad clients usually take the agent who will work with them. The other thing is that when you go at business from that place of learning and value, and you just come from like authenticity, the higher net worth the client is, the more people don't realize they're just looking for somebody who's listening, somebody who they can trust, and somebody who can add value. And by adding value, you have to learn and know your market and study your market all the time. So as a new agent, I naively, it was kind of like that naive genius in me, was just learning, but seeing that to them said, this is somebody who is learning the market, knows the market, who has the
Yeah.
time to work, who's all, I know where I know what they are. So it's a quick, it's not, this is a Chris Voss quote. It's not a sin to not get a deal. It's a sin to take a long time to not get a deal. And when you're
Hmm.
faking it till you make it, you're just taking a long time to not get a deal, and you're not learning to get the deals that are right. So back to the people who are hiring me, they could quickly see who I was, and I was either quickly getting the business are moving on, because we only need like such a small fraction of the deals anyway to be successful. And we need the ones that are right for us and
Love
for the
it.
client.
Yeah, I love. There's so much there that I want to ask. I totally agree, though. I think naturally, a lot of successful people, like high net worth people, like you mentioned, it's really easy to connect with someone who's genuinely hungry, and it's easy to fake being hungry, but like when you can actually see this person is ready to work and be hungry, like you sort of, you naturally attract yourself to the right people.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. You mentioned, so as a new agent, and sort of your thing was, best thing to do is, or best thing you can do is to do deals so you can just learn and educate yourself. So quick question, like, is it a good idea for new agents, or maybe agents who aren't doing too well right now, to, let's say, lower their commission to get new business and just get out there
What kind
and
of
learn and
question is
educate
that?
yourself?
What
Well,
kind of question is that? No. And I'll tell you
no.
why.
Hmm.
It the damage that does, I think. Now, let me do a side note. I shop at Walmart sometimes, maybe. I go to Costco, but I also go to Saks. I also go to Ritz. I also go to, you know, it's when it comes to discount, is your goal to be a discount broker? Is that what you want to be? If so, go down that path and do that, because there are certain properties that, whatever it is, that might be appropriate for. So if that's your goal, to just do high volume and discount services and whatever that, then maybe it is. If your goal is to sell, is to be a full service, white glove service realtor, and if your goal is to serve high net worth clients, if your value isn't, if your value is less than a full percent commission, or you have to offer less than full percent commission, you're not really, you're going down the path of perpetually lowering. You've already set the standard and the precedence. So to answer your question though, okay, well then how do you as a new agent justify charging as much as the experienced agents? That's probably really what the question is.
Yeah, so maybe I didn't ask it correctly. So even if, let's say, your intention was to be like the white glove agent, high level service, but you're new and you want to just get your feet wet and get a few deals under your belt, you know, is, I'll start getting at, does it make sense to maybe lower your
No,
commission for one or two deals? Still
no.
no.
I'll tell you what does make sense.
Okay.
That never makes sense. And here's the reason why. You're like, what? This girl's impossible. And there's an answer to that question, but I'm going to answer the no first. You don't do that because as a real estate agent, if you're a realtor, there's a solution to the problem. Don't worry. I'm not going to talk out of both sides of my mouth. But first, as a realtor, you do have a fiduciary responsibility to your client to do what's best for them. So some of the most successful agents I know, one of them, when I met him, he had done 150 million in 1 year. Last year, he did 280 million. Neil Bassi in San Francisco. And the way Neil Bassi does not and did not reduce his commission. What he did do is when he would find a deal, he would go, okay, I've got this connection. I've got this deal. I want to serve this deal and I want to win it. He would go find the agent, the seasoned agent to align with and co-op the deal with. No agent's going to say no if a less experienced agent says, hey, will you co-op this with me? So he would find the seasoned agents to co-op with. He would learn from those agents. So yes, his commission was discounted, but not at risk of not giving the client the best service possible. And there was
Yeah.
no risk of a bad experience. And there was every best intention, because they're going to get the hungry agent who's going to do everything they can to sell it, but they're going to get the seasoned agent behind that, making sure the right things are done, the connections are made, and everybody wins in that deal.
I like that. That's a good idea. Another thing you mentioned, so when you first started out, you sort of gravitated towards, landowners, and now sort of your niche. Is it a good idea for agents to pick a niche in a segment of a market, like, first time buyers or investors, or is it better to just broaden it out?
I'm gonna have fun with you and answer a question with a question just for fun. Is it a good idea to like try to be all things to all people?
Probably not.
Right. So I think like agents would say, well, I can't just like pick a niche, because if I do, I'm gonna get all of these people saying, I'm going to like cut out all of this potential business. Why would I ever do that? That's like professional suicide. But trying to be all things to all people is really professional suicide and in no best interest of the client that you serve. So you say, well, I know I could just like, I'm like asking questions, but I'm asking questions to answer your questions. So shut me up if you need to. But I'll never forget, like, it was way too many years of the business. I had done the land deals and I kind of fell into that. And then there was the recession. So then I did short sales. And then we're coming out of short sales, and I'm actually having my first son, my son, who's now 10, he's about to be 11. But I had just had him. So I've got limited time. Recession was 2009. And I've got to make more money. And we're actually coming out of the recession by then, by the way. But I thought, okay, how am I going to, but I couldn't afford a nanny. So like, I mean, I've already been through what I went through 10 years before. Now here we are again in the Great Recession. Like, come on, like, what is the time? What is it with the timing? Right? Do I just get to keep struggling? So, but in that, I just, part of this was listening to a coach who's not a real estate coach named Fabienne Fredrickson. And she was a coach for coaches, because I actually thought I wanted to be a coach, because I was like, this real estate thing's terrible. And then I realized like real estate's really the most lucrative and I have experience. But where I'm going with that is, she said, you've got to pick something, and pick something that you're good at that nobody else is. And if you're specific, people will know who to refer you and will think of how to refer you. So I remember like I picked Historic Brookhaven in Atlanta. Now I'm Buckhead in Atlanta. I'm more broad because I mentor a team and I have them, they specialize, but I'll never forget. I said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to specialize. Because sometimes you have to do the craziest things when you have nothing to lose. So I picked Historic Brookhaven, where the average sales price is $1.5 million, in a city where the average sales price is $250,000, by the way. And I learned that market. I already knew how to negotiate. I already knew about land. I already knew how to handle clients. And I just honed in, and I did all of my marketing, everything I did, everything I talked about, every email signature was Historic Brookhaven. Within a month, I had 7 listings that were over $1 million.
Love it.
Like,
No,
how do you do,
yeah.
right? Because I just honed in.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And the reason I asked that question is because
Yeah.
I'm actually glad you answered it in that way so decisively, because obviously it is so much easier to market yourself and go find the people that you want to work with, and picking a niche is the easiest way to do that, obviously. So the way you did it was in a particular area.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be an area. It could be, there's 1,000 things it could be, but but I can't resist sharing a story with you about niching too, or specializing or whatever. I'll never forget, I was at this girl power or whatever, a women's networking event. And there were, I think, 50 women there, and 5 of them were real estate agents. And every single real estate agent said, I sell houses. If you guys know anybody who's thinking about buying or selling a house, just tell them to call me. Every single agent. And I was like the 4th agent. And I said, I sell homes in Historic Brookhaven. If you know somebody, or you know somebody who knows somebody that might be thinking about selling, or just wants to know the value or what it might be of their home in Historic Brookhaven, just have them give me a call. The last agent, who was actually I've actually surpassed her now, but I'll never forget. It was because of strategies like this. She said, well, I can't even believe this, but she goes, well, if you want to sell a house with me, you don't have to have a house in Historic Brookhaven. I'll sell a house anywhere. When she said that, she reinforced to everyone who to call if you do have a house in Historic Brookhaven. And she reinforced, because when somebody, like lenders as agents, how many lenders call us? How many website companies call us, right? and you're like, okay, well, they can't even tell you what makes them special. And so there's nothing to relate to why I would refer you business other than my go-to. But if you have a specialty, it would be a disservice not to refer those people that I know to the specialist. Everybody else can get mom, or everybody else can get my cousin who's got a license, or whoever's got a license. But I mean, she specializes in Historic Brookhaven. We've got to give this one. I mean, that would like be wrong to not give them the specialist.
Yeah, I love it. Did you end up sending that agent like a nice bottle of wine or something?
Should have. I did. I should have. What was I thinking?
So farming, it's I think it's an easy niche to pick. You said there's several others. Like what other suggestions would you give
One would
for?
be, do you specialize in people downsizing? You could do
Hmm.
one specializing in people who are divorcing. You could
Yeah.
do, I think a good way to answer that is what what can you do that no one else can do? And sometimes it may be specializing in the way you attract clients and the services that you offer, whether it's digital marketing. It could be you specialize in people relocating to Atlanta. So if you're really good at, the markets you have, which is a little bit where my team is going, you have highly specialized members of your team in different sections of Atlanta. Now you specialize in, hey, if you know people relocating to Atlanta, we understand how to work with the corporations. We understand the reload process. We understand how to work with inspections, get things done on homes, or help people in that transition and make that smooth for the Cindan or whoever the companies are that are involved in the reload process. And there's
Yeah.
like a lot of it is just asking yourself, what am I good at? What have I done that nobody else can do? And how do I, some of it could be, you could actually specialize in staging homes or specialize in decorating and
Hmm.
focus on, or you could specialize in helping people buy homes and fixer uppers, help people specialize in flipping homes. Or you could
Love
come
it.
up with, there's a
Yeah.
million talents you might have that you tap into.
It's pretty endless for sure. One of the most common questions I get from, not only new agents, but any agent really is how to generate leads, like how to build your contacts and your pipeline of leads. So
Right.
I know that's a loaded question,
You
but
just get a website with your website company, Web for Realty, and it'll all take care of itself.
it's that easy. Yeah.
Actually, I
Uh,
will say this: you do have to have systems and processes that, like where Web for Realty offers. You have to have that part of your business. But your question, just to make sure, because I kind of interrupted you, is how do you build a pipeline? How do you build leads? How do you build that business so you kind of have
Yeah,
systems behind it?
naturally you start with your sphere of influence, family, friends, whatever. But how do you grow beyond that? What are some ways to continuously just meet new people and grow your leads and your contacts?
I think that depends on who you are and what drives you and what your passion is and what your specialty is in the first place. So, number one, it's some people are really great at just making those calls and cold calling. So, do that. But to make those calls successful, you specialize. Or if you're a little bit more like me, I like talking to people, but it's got to be warm, and I've got
Yeah.
to know my value. So on those people, what is the marketing that positions you to attract people to you? So you say, okay, I want to sell 100 million a year. To do that, the average sales price, I want it to be 1 million. Okay, well, is that realistic? 100 deals a year at $1 million. What market can you capture where you're going to ensure that? And then when you look at that, you go, okay, I'm stealing this one from Fabian Fredericks again, but you say, okay, I'm going to take 8 different activities that I can do to generate business. And I'm going to schedule those activities. So they might be social media, they might be cold calling, they might be pop buys like Brian Buffini, they might be text buys, they might be have events with your sphere of influence to reach deeper with those connections. But come up with 8 categories and then come up with a schedule. One of them is, what am I going to do every day? Every single day, what are my habits to generate business? And for me, it's not just generating business. It's the more I focus on being really good at what I do in whatever I'm doing to generate business, it's got to feed, like Gary Keller. I've quoted him so much today, which is kind of ironic, but Gary Keller wrote the book, The One Thing. So it's what can I do that continues to feed my business and what I do? So even though I might be prospecting, how can I prospect in a way that nurtures my business, my team, what I'm good at, um, my knowledge of the market. You've got to know the market. You've got to know how to deliver business in your market, and you've got to know how to cultivate those relationships in the market. So I know I'm a little broad on that question because I think it's so specific to people, but
Yeah,
does
and
that,
I was gonna ask for a bit more specific. So not to
yeah,
not
no,
to
no, please.
not to give everything away, but what are one or two things that you personally do every single day to sort of drive that?
Every single day, Well, frankly, every single day, what I should do is write at least 2 notes of gratitude to at least 2 people a day. And I could write 10 a day. And that is one thing that I've not been the best at. But the other thing I do every day, I'm getting way off like abstract here and I'm going to get back to specific, is meditate. Every
Mhm.
night, night before, I do 6 phase meditation. Have you ever read the book Code of Extraordinary Mind by Vishen Lakhiani?
No, see, I thought I've read a lot of books, but you're throwing some at me that I haven't. So,
So he wrote a book about and I know I'm like going out. You're like, wait.
no, this is
Breathe
good.
in.
This is
You're
good.
going back out. You're like, this isn't the Joe Rogan show. I don't deliver anything to drink or anything to smoke. I don't need it. So Code of Extraordinary Mind is written by Vishen Lakhiani. And Vishen Lakhiani, um, the book is about it calls it, I haven't read it in a while, but it's the 4 stages of consciousness. And
Yeah.
in those 4 stages of consciousness, there's 12 steps of consciousness. But anyway, it talks about the people who just say, take things at face value, the people who are like, hey, I can actually like do things to change my world a little bit. Then there are the people who go, wait, maybe I'm a bigger part of a bigger picture. And then people who are what they call truly enlightened people, from
Hmm.
maybe Eckhart Tolle when he wrote The Power of Now. Have you read that one? That's a mainstream one.
That one I've read. Yeah, that's
The
mainstream.
Awakening. The Awakening is really good. So going back to answer your question, the 6 phase meditation is what he does, and it kind of grounds you in every day, connecting yourself to people, every day thinking about what you're grateful for, every day anybody you in your life that you have conflict with is reminding yourself that he has like several versions of the meditation, but always reminding yourself that you're not the victim, giving yourself empathy in their perspective. And he kind of has this process where you stand in front of them and you apologize to them, even though you want to kill them, kind of a thing.
Hmm.
It keeps you in that world of considering the universe actually doesn't revolve around you. And then the next one is envisioning what you want for your life. And the fifth one is, okay, now that you know what you want for your life, what is everything you're going to do today or tomorrow, whenever you're meditating, that's going to reinforce all of those things that you want from your life? And then the end of the meditation is, oh, by the way, like, don't forget, he doesn't say it that way, but oh, by the way, don't forget, like, whether you're an atheist, whether you're spiritual, whether it's God, whatever your greater force is, whatever your belief is, know that luck is out there for you. Things are happening not to me, but for me. And then that starts your day every day with that mentality and that way of looking at things. And back to where we started in the beginning, your problems are usually your opportunities, right? What you think is your
Hmm.
problem is your opportunity. Had I not had the limitations of a limited network, no money, all of the things that I started my business with, I would have never had the opportunities that got me where they did then and where I am today. I wouldn't have my podcast today that's generated me so many more connections in business because I wouldn't have needed it and I wouldn't have gotten as far as I've gotten for the sheer challenges that I've been presented to me to be able to overcome.
Yeah, I love it. So
Yeah.
gratitude, meditation, those are two things that I think anyone in the world, should take that advice and probably do. But specifically for this audience, realtors, what are one or two
Well,
things
realtors also should have gratitude and meditate. But
beyond that? Beyond
meat,
that,
to get back to the meat of what
yes.
you do. So one thing I used to do is I used to have, so remember I said, okay, I specialize in historic Brookhaven. One of the most powerful things that I have done in my business is, remember I said I'd had a son, had limited time. So I thought, how am I going to connect with enough people in a way that I can do business with them? So I started hosting a lunch at the country club that where historic Brookhaven is. And when I hosted that lunch, I would select specific people to come. And then I would meet people. I would invite people to this lunch. And then I would I had like 200 women on the list. And about, 20 of them would come to each lunch. But I was constantly in front of them, constantly inviting them to this lunch over and over. And it gave me a database of people it kind of gave me a way to reconnect with my sphere of influence. So even if I got busy, there was always an invitation out to them. There was always a way for them to connect back to me. And I was constantly, by the nature of my business, in a positioning myself and reminding them who I was, but not in a way that was pushing for business, but it was way inviting. So it established authority, established reciprocity, it established respect, affluence, influence, all of those things that
Yeah.
drive people. You
That's
want
yeah.
people to hire. You want people to decide that they're hiring you before you know it. You want to give them that opportunity.
Yeah, that's great. So so lead generating and increasing your sphere of influence, you can say, that's one part of the equation. Arguably, maybe even more important is like your existing clients and nurturing your clients and for
That's what the
referrals.
launch is for too. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I was gonna say, like, or ask, what are some specific ways other than the one you just mentioned that you can nurture your clients and hope for repeat business and referrals?
So a question I asked myself, I remember before I had done the land deals, and then there was the recession, and then it was like, okay, I've really got to figure out a way to make money in this because land at the time was gone. And I can remember driving through these, big neighborhoods and looking. I said this before, but I looked not in this interview, but and just looking at people's signs in these yards, these big estates, and just thinking these people are just impossible. Like, how do you break through to these people? Like, how did that agent like get their endorsement like that and their signs out in the yard? Like,
Yeah.
how do they do it? Right. So,
Hmm.
so back to your question is, it's not like the things I do, I call them a lot. I present information consistently. I actually have it's not even a podcast. It's a weekly market update that goes out on social media. And we're going to build out a blog for it that just talks about the Atlanta market.
Yeah.
Just consistently among my team, we're just talking about here's what the market's doing every single week, like
Yeah.
any kind of information that I can give them. And then one of my team members every month has 100 people that she gives like very inexpensive. I mean, like she spends less than $5 a gift. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say that out loud, like less than $5 a gift. But
Yeah.
every month she's hand delivering gifts to her clients. And she's like, I do that about once a quarter, but they are like ecstatic
Yeah. It's
that
a
she's bringing
gesture.
them
Yeah.
gifts, just the gestures and the calls.
Yeah.
And then we do things like I'll text by somebody say, oh my gosh, your house looks beautiful. Just thinking about you. It's things
And
like that.
it's so simple too, but like, yeah, I find most agents out there, unfortunately, they don't think about that, and they don't do a lot of the basic things.
Well, it's thinking about and what is important to my ideal client. Like number one, who is my ideal client? John Lee Dumas. He has a podcast. I don't know if does he still have a podcast?
I'm not sure.
He's not a real estate guy. He's like an entrepreneur guy, and
Not sure.
he has a podcast, and he talks about like he tells people how to do a podcast, and he says before you do a podcast, he calls it your avatar. He says, you got to
Hmm.
have an avatar. Like, who is my listener? Like, who is that person? And his avatar is someone who wants to be an entrepreneur. They haven't quite made it. They want to figure out how to do it. They're 32 years old. They're a little bit disappointed, but they still believe in themselves. They still got that passion. Now, that's not every listener, but and I don't know that that's his exact avatar, but he calls it an avatar. And he says, this is the person that you have to know is your audience, and then deliver. So as an agent, who is your ideal client? you know that ideal client, what is important to them, what is valuable to them, what are the things that I can do for them, what's the information, you know what's the information they need, what are their questions, what keeps them up at night, what are their biggest fears, what do they wake up sweating about, what would they give, this is another Fabian Fredrickson quote, but what would they give any amount for, what problem would they give for you to solve for them. It's
Yeah.
those questions and creating content that appeals to those questions on a character level of what is your character and what is your competence.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Uh,
right. Am I
I
still too vague for you?
No, no. So I think we're on the same page here. So,
Okay.
a lot has changed in real estate, I'm sure, since you first started out. So, what are some of the most effective marketing strategies that are working for you today? And I know you mentioned a few things already on a high level, but more
Right.
specifically, what would you say right now is the best growth marketing channel for you, you'd say?
For me, oh gosh, I'm trying to not be abstract and vague about this. For me, it is I've built a business where people are constantly coming to me. I'm gonna go somewhere with growth though. But on my personal business is that my focus every day is on delivering to my clients today. Now, in doing that, focus on how can I get more showings in a property? How can I get them better feedback? How can I get better marketing? How can I make that property look even prettier online? How can I make sure that agent makes an offer? What kind of conversations can I have with who to get the right property client in the property? So, because remember, I'm doing 50 deals a year, not hundreds. And so in doing that, the next thing is I bring in team members to help be better at team members who are better at what I'm bad at. So I
Yeah.
have team members who are great at paperwork. I have team members doing closings. Of team members who are also agents who help while I'm negotiating and on listing pitches. I've got other agents who are helping with clients and get them in properties and make sure when somebody, we don't do not many of our listings are on lot boxes. We're there in person. So making sure that if somebody wants to see a house, I'm not the agent who can't get there because I'm too busy. We've always got somebody who can be there, and having that agent show up so that they can learn, get the feedback. I do the follow up. And so that's really like my focus is on not so much growth as it is just be doing the best job possible for my clients and having the best team possible. Now, in doing that, it's like ridiculous the amount of referrals and the amount of momentum that you get just from doing a good job. Do you remember the book Good to Great, or did you ever read that?
I have, yeah.
So there was the hedgehog concept. Do you remember what that is?
Very vaguely.
So
Very vague. Remind us.
there was the hedgehog and the fox. And the fox
Okay.
is like, all right, what am I going to do to get some more business? And he was always like hopping around and doing something different and always just trying to figure out how he could make a deal. And there was the hedgehog. And the hedgehog was like, this is what I do. I sell houses. I, you know, I I'm a real estate agent. I sell houses for $2 million. I'm in Atlanta. I'm in Buckhead. So I'm gonna make sure we show the house and let's get feedback and make the property pretty and stage it beautifully and like all the boring stuff.
Yeah.
But it's all those things, or at least our team model. Now we have a podcast, we're in magazines, people write about us, but all of that happens because of the hedgehog concept.
Yeah.
And
Love it.
in just focusing on Shirley being amazing, that builds this momentum up where our biggest challenge is making sure that we can deliver and exceed our client. And when we get clients whose expectations we don't think we can exceed, or clients we don't think are a fit for the team, or clients who we're not really going to be able to do the best job possible, we make a real point to make sure they get with the agent who will do the best job possible. And when you do that, people are like, whoa, I know somebody who, you're right, you weren't the right agent for me, but I know somebody who you were perfect for. And now by redirecting one piece of business that wasn't great, I just generated 3 leads instead of one
Yeah.
mad client who now I've got to spend all my time and money on, and I figure out how to get enough cold calls out to get enough deals coming my way.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. You know, that hedgehog concept. I think it's all about being consistent and, you know, week in, day out, week in, week out, and just delivering consistently. And like eventually, you will snowball into
Yeah.
success, whatever your success looks like. Um, Switching gears a little bit. So, you know, so you said you do 50 deals a year, approximately.
Right.
Okay. So, you know, providing value and content to your clients on a daily basis is obviously important, and you need to do it, you know, just to be front of mind in marketing and brand awareness. But at the end of the day, you need to also deliver and execute for your clients, buyers or sellers. But talking about selling specifically, or sellers, like when you land that listing, how do you, and specifically, like how do you stand out and deliver and provide that experience that stands out to your client, and, you know, makes them so happy that they'll gladly refer you to their family and friends?
Um, Show up. I think for us, they usually hire us because of our track record at this point. And when they hire us, for me, it's having a lot of experts and specialists come to the table, delivering on staging, delivering on follow up, feedback, scheduling showings. I mean, little things though, like little details are every showing we have, it goes in the calendar of the client, every single showing. And every single
Yeah.
showing that goes in the calendar, they know what the showing is. I mean, that's little, but I always say it's the little tiny things that make the biggest
Hmm.
difference. Just putting all of your showings on the calendar that they can see it, that makes a difference. Every time we have a showing, following up with the agent and following up with the client to let the client know what the buyer said. Every week, checking in with the client. Well, actually, we usually talk to them every other day, but if we don't, checking in with them every week and letting them know, hey, this is what the market's doing. And when you're doing that marketing, that consistent marketing, like the market updates we do, it gives us it gives us the information that makes the feedback easy on what's the market doing, what's the decisions we make. And another thing I think for me personally, like what can you do nobody else can do? A lot of my clients hire the marketing, the exposure, the high level of service. Those are all great. There are a lot of agents that do that. Everybody's got different clients attracted to them. Mine are all about the strategy. Like the ones that hire me are because I don't think like everybody else. And
Yeah.
how are we not just thinking about like Jerry thinking about like how am I going to get a listing, get it sold, but understanding I'm going to quote Chris Voss again, never split the difference, but he talks about the black swan, finding the black swan in every situation, which means what do you not know? What do you not know? You know, you don't know what you don't know, but finding out what that is and asking the questions to get to the bottom of that. Doing that helps win a lot of business because it gets you to actively listen to clients and it gets you to actively help them find solutions. And a lot of times they're actually finding the solutions. They just think you are because you asked them the right questions.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I spend a lot of time on is calls with clients, just on listings I already have, just on,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what's going on? Explain to me the strategy, explain to me. And a lot of agents see that as like, are you kidding me? Like, why are you calling me? I have the listing, just let me show it. But what that does is it gives you the conversation. And what we're here for is our experience and education. It helps me help them get to the decision they need to make without never be attached. The only thing I'm attached to is that the client is understands the situation and is well advised so that they can make the decision to get to the result. And when you get in that frame of mind, people want to hire you, they refer you. And when you understand that that's your job isn't just to like wrestle a deal and then close it. Your job is to listen to clients, understand clients, know the market so you can ask and guide them in the direction to get them where they need to be and confidently. A big frustration with agents is our clients don't make good decisions. But if you can advise them and ask them questions the right way, you're going to get them to the place where they make the right decisions and they're going to love you for it. They'll love you for it. And I think that's probably thinking about it, that's really all the marketing, all the, flowers we deliver and the meals we deliver and the gifts we give them every month. At the end of the day, what they really love us for is that engagement of coming from a place of helping them understand the market and almost being their therapist in a way. But
Yeah.
that
No.
gets them to make that decision and feel good about it.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense for sure. Um, Sort of on topic, but maybe switching gears slightly. But so you talk about processes a lot, and it seems like processes are very important to you, as they should be, and with any business. But how are you using technology to help with your processes and your team, which all in turn I think benefits your clients as well if done properly?
So, how are we using technology?
Yeah, like any, how are you using to any apps that or tools that you
Oh,
use to
yes.
help with processes or
So we use Asana because that's a active checklist that we can all integrate and check the buttons off. I mean, or check, we can see who's doing what when. And then it's like, did you ever see the movie Lucy?
yeah.
And she takes the pill and
Yeah.
all of a sudden, like
Yeah,
everything,
yeah.
like having Asana, you're like,
That's your Lucy.
oh yeah. I mean, whatever the drug was, except it's not a drug,
Yeah.
it's just a technology. But it gives you like a picture of who's doing what when. And if I need help with something,
Yeah.
whose checklist says what, so I can put things in the right place. WhatsApp is a great tool to communicate with your team because we're constantly, even though we have the checklist, if I need something quick, if I've got a quick question, WhatsApp is the easiest because texts get stuck. Your phone
Yeah.
gets stuck. You can't send documents quickly. You can't always get the message. And WhatsApp is the place I always know where to check in with the team. I check into WhatsApp, and all the
Yeah.
messages are going to be there. They're not going to get lost. Um, as far as those are the two really big ones. We use Google Drive because it's easy to share, easy to save, easy to organize, easy to share things with clients. And the typical like MLS, all of those good things. Gmail, we use Gmail
Yeah.
because it integrates so
Okay.
quickly. And then on
All right.
websites, we're looking at Web4 Realty because we need a good one. So
You should. You should.
let everybody, I wasn't asked for that plug, but that's the truth. Yeah.
Appreciate that. Okay, no, that's great. Processes are definitely very important. Um, I totally forgot to ask you this earlier, but you mentioned it a couple times as well. So
Yeah.
you've experienced, I guess, two recessions now, like 2008,
Well, my
2009.
own
I don't.
personal recession and then the
Okay.
Great Recession that was in 2000. It started in '07, but it was '07 was a great year. But
Yeah.
I felt that recession in '08 and '09. That was just like, geez, am I ever going to make money again? Ever?
Yeah. So how would you compare that period to this whole COVID pandemic? I know this seems to be like agents
Oh,
I've
not
been
even the
speaking.
same.
I think early on there's just a lot of uncertainty. Things just like got paralyzed in a lot of real estate markets for a short period of time. But now I'm speaking to agents, and it just seems to be so hot everywhere,
Yeah.
in Toronto, Canada, the U.S. as well. So, um, ho- is there a relation between 2008 and this like short little recession that you experienced in real estate?
I don't think there's been a recession. Not in Atlanta. Now, New
Not in
York
your
City,
market. Yeah.
New York City would say in Atlanta, the contracts and sales went. They it was a week by week thing. The month of April, they were the beginning of April. They were just kind of stabilized. 2 weeks into April, they literally went to almost zero. And then coming out of April, it went right back at the end of April where it was, and it's been going up since then. And now we're up. Now I've forgotten year over year, we're up in contracts like 38% and up in sales like 20%. That's Atlanta stats,
Yeah.
not so.
Hmm.
The Atlanta market is doing well. I mean, I think that was just like, I wouldn't call that a recession. I would call that
Downturn, maybe correction, whatever it was. I mean,
it was just a
probably
blip.
couldn't even call. Yeah,
It
it's
was
not
just
even
like,
either of
it
those.
stopped for a minute. Now, what
Yeah,
is the long-term effect of all of this going to be? I mean, you're going to have
yeah,
different people have already, some people are already feeling a lot of pain. Other people are having benefits. Some people put money in the market when it was down and they're already coming out on top. Then you've got all the government incentives. So like, what's going to happen in the long run? The
yeah,
economists are saying we're going to be fine because we have so much self-regulation that came out of the Great Recession, and people weren't over borrowing money. But now I don't know enough about, I really don't, I'm not an economist and I don't know enough about um, what is going on with incentives that the government's paying and how those get repaid and what happens to tax.
yeah. That's a rabbit hole. Maybe we can get
Yeah.
into
The
outside the
market
show.
right now, there are a lot of not just buyers, but cash buyers, which tells me
Yeah,
if there's cash and interest rates are so low, which is driving prices up, but houses are 10% more affordable in Atlanta right now because interest rates are so low, and prices are up maybe 5% year over year, but not, that's a guess, everybody. So if you check those numbers, they could be wrong. But,
yeah,
prices are up, but houses are even more affordable because interest rates are so low.
yeah.
People can afford
So
10% more house or 10% higher price than they could a year ago.
yeah. Okay. So maybe I want to ask that in a different way. So I think every realtor shouldn't be naive to know that, business is cyclical. You're going to have your ups and your
Right.
downs. So living or experiencing the 2008 like real recession and sort of knowing that there eventually will be another one to come, like how would you position yourself to make sure you get out of that future recession on top?
I'm not going to have the right answer for this. Most people would say save your money and don't spend and do all of those things. I
What about from like a branding point of view and
but
like
yeah,
marketing?
I think, well, I for me it's continue to be really good at what you do. For me it's find, you know, whatever the market presents, there's always supply and demand. Just find where the supply is low and the demand is high and fill that gap. And the better you are at what you do, the more prepared you'll be for that. And do save money, do be cautious, do all of those things. But to
Yeah,
survive in real estate, just be really good at what you do and stay on the market and know your market so that you can adjust and again, I was talking to a builder the other day. He said, I remember he was like a finance major and something. He goes, the best economics instructor I ever had said, it's just supply and demand. Just get a hold of that, understand supply and demand, and you're good.
Yeah.
Supply and demand.
True.
Find where the
Simple.
supply is low, find where the demand's high, and you got to be a little clever to do that. But it's often like, I keep quoting Fabienne Frederickson today, but she used to go, you know, opportunity is always right under your nose. Everybody's looking out in all these different crazy places for opportunity, but usually it's right in front of you. Supply and demand.
Yeah.
What's the opportunity in front of you that you just haven't opened your eyes to yet?
Yeah, for sure. Well said. Jerry, I'm looking at the clock here. I do want to be mindful of your
Yeah.
time. I do end off each show with what I call the top three, some heavy hitting
Well, mine is the
questions.
final three, so I can't
Is
wait to
it?
see what the
Wow.
top
Okay.
three are.
Wow. I didn't even know that.
Seriously, yeah.
Okay. So, all right. Number one, you mentioned a few already, which is good, but your favorite real estate or business book?
By far, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
Yeah. Yeah,
Best
for
book
sure. That's a
ever.
good one.
It will get you thinking. That is the one book. This business is so intense, and you always want to say the right thing, do the right thing, win the business. No matter how good you are, there's that element of just you just kind of feel that pressure. That book helps you stop making it about yourself
Yeah.
and start making it about the other person, and give you the tools to ask the right questions and give you the tools to truly listen to
Yeah.
people.
How many times have you read that one?
7.
Yeah. Nice.
How did you know to ask that? Have you heard me say that, or is that your
No,
regular question?
I haven't.
Yeah. I read
Uh,
most books like halfway through. I read that book 7 times.
it's just one of those books where you have to read more than once,
Yeah.
to
Have you
really,
read it?
yeah. I have, yeah. I've only read it once actually, so I gotta, and it was a
What
while
was
back.
your what
So
was your big takeaway from that book?
I read it so long ago where honestly I couldn't even give you
Like
one.
for me, it was life changing. Like,
What?
what do you mean you like don't remember? Like,
No, it was so long ago. I was still in university. I wasn't in like business, so it was, I just read it.
read it again now that you're in
Yeah.
business.
So let me ask you, like, get into that book. What is the one big takeaway from that book?
Oh, there's too many. Gosh, there's too many. I think the biggest one is there's so many. I'm trying to think of like how to paraphrase it. It's really just what I got from it is how to learn when to shut up as much as I clearly love to talk, learn what questions to ask, and really in the power in saying less and shutting up and listening.
Yeah. Yeah.
When there's
I
a
like that.
problem, it's not about running your mouth and telling people
Yep.
what you know. It's about shutting up, making sure people know they're heard. And it's amazing what can come of that.
True. Yeah, for sure. Love that. Number two, this is sort of a weird question now because vacations are sort of a foresight, but what is your favorite vacation
Right.
spot?
Oh gosh. The place I go most and love to go because it's the place where my family is so happy and good together, but I don't know that it's
Yeah.
really my favorite is Rosemary Beach.
Rosemary, where's that?
That's like, do you know, have you heard of 30A? So you know where Destin and Panama City are? Destin Beach and Panama City?
I've never heard of the beach, but obviously I know Panama City.
Right. So between Panama City and Destin, that's 30A, runs along the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay. Yeah.
And there are all of these pre-developed or developed pre-planned communities. There's Seaside would be one everybody's heard of. But
Okay.
Seaside, Alice Beach, and Rosemary. And I love that because it's a place where mom's happy, dad's happy. It's beautiful. There's nothing exotic and exciting about that. I mean, it's not even another country, but
Yeah. Rosemary Beach. Okay. Got to check that out for sure. And lastly, if you can go back in time, what do you wish your 20-year-old self knew when you were just starting out in business?
mm, oh my gosh, I wish I'd read the book Never Split the Difference. It wasn't written yet.
Nice. All right.
I think I wish I knew that don't let don't think that just because you're 20 you can't do anything. Realize there's a lot of power in youth and a lot of wisdom in your youth, don't, be open-minded, learn and listen, but don't underestimate yourself.
Love it. Love it. Jerry, perfect way to end this. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
I honestly had a
Thank you.
blast. Thank you so much.
You were fun. Thank you.
I,
That was
I hope
great.
we can do this again sometime.
That would be great. You just let me know. That was fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All the best. And actually, if someone wants to reach out or get a hold of you, where's the best place to do so?
Oh, my website's the best place to go, which is Jerry. Oh gosh, this is
It's
funny.
not a Web for Realty website yet.
Oh yeah, it
So.
was Atlanta Fun Homes. Well, we're not going to say that. It's not even. Well, actually, it's on my company website until I get my website. Like seriously. So Web for Realty is like Web for Realty is like sounds like it might like be the one. And we'll have to come back on and talk about that.
Yeah.
But we'll just give you my cell number. It's 770-337-7122.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much, Jerry.
Thank you,
Pleasure
Russell.
speaking with you, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Good talking to you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Take care.